Okay, at this point, I think you got a pretty good idea how the fur and hair is working. So what you can do is actually put a light tag on there. Just right click and add from the hair a light. Okay, and that's how we did it earlier. For that, let's actually just add an infinite light to the scene. Okay, and select that light. We're going to hit rotate, and let's just rotate it so that it's kind of coming from above. We're going to make it pretty harsh. We're going to try and do a bit of an outdoor scene. And with the light, let's make it very warm because it is outdoors. You can go blue too, actually. Let's go a little blue instead. Let's make it a little cooler. It might even be too much. Okay. And we're going to put our shadows on. And it's outdoors, so you're going to definitely want hard shadows. Okay. We're going to save the scene. And let's do a render to see how that looks. Let that pop up there. And from here, we're going to put some textures on. And I want to pull back a little bit so we can put a little bit of a sky in there. I'll show you how to do that. So the only problem with the hair is that it takes a little bit longer to render. We're going to turn those off in a little bit so we can finish up the rest of the scene for our preview renders. But the next thing we're going to do is actually put some texture on here. And we're just basically going to put some red on there, but then we can use a little body paint to just add a little bit of smudging on there and a little imperfection. Okay. So now we got, okay lighting. Nothing too great, but we're going to fix that in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just rotate just a little bit like this so we kind of see back there. And then what I'm going to do is actually, let's turn off the hair and the weeds. And without those rendering, and actually, you know what? There's one more thing you have to do when you want to disable those. Right down here under hairs, you can turn that off. And under weeds, you can turn that off. You can do it both ways. You can check it here with the X, or you can hit enabled. And this way, we do a render. Now we're just seeing the scene. All right. Okay. Let's get back to, right now we have a timeline. We have our animation view up. And I want to talk about the timeline a little bit. So let's say we're animating the camera, whatever else we're animating. As we create keyframes, you can go to each individual element and work with your timeline this way. Earlier when we were working, we had our timeline up here and we were selecting a particular object, working with the timeline. And for the most part, that's a really good way to work. When you get into more complex scenes and you have multiple things going, you can actually work all in here. And what's great is that you can actually select and group multiple sets of keyframes. You can get to just about everything in your scene that would have a keyframe and edit it and adjust it and move it. So it's a really nice way to work. Okay, and as we do more advanced training from 3D Garage that are more specific towards characters and bones and structures and Mocha and some of the other modules in Cinema 4D, we'll be using that. But for now, let's get back to our standard mode here, and we don't want it that big. Let's pop it down here like this. All right, let's get to our material editor. Let's add a new material, and this guy is going to be our land. And because we have just kind of a dingy kind of ground, I don't want it green and I don't want it brown. I kind of want it in between there, like that. And we don't want it specular at all, so turn that off. But I do want some diffusion on. Not luminous, just diffusion. And for that diffusion, we're going to put noise on there. Okay, and this is going to dirty it up a bit. But we're going to bring that value down. Don't want it so strong. And we're going to drop that on the landscape, easy enough. File, new material. This will be our hydrant. Okay, color, well, it's got to be red. Nice bright red like that. Okay. Specularity, I do want some. I don't want plastic. I want it a little more metal. Okay. And let's just make sure we got that going just right. Just about like that. Just a big flat surface, okay? You can play this fall off value. I don't think you need to do too much. Somewhere in there. And the inner width, certain metals are going to have this. If you got more of a clear coat type of finish on there, we want it to be soft like that. Okay, and that should work for us for now. Okay, for the color, I think the brightness is okay. Reflection, I want some on, but not very much. We're not trying to go real bright and new, but we just definitely want it just to be a little bit. And the other thing that's cool about this, actually I am going to increase it just a little, is that you can add also a noise texture for here, and that noise is going to help vary the reflection a bit. So it's kind of neat. Okay, and we don't want the strength too much on that. Just make our reflections kind of spotty, and it'll help dirty that up. Okay, and our reflections can be blurry. Now this is going to add to your render time, but it's going to create a really nice look on there. Okay, and of course, just like I've shown you before, you can go into your noise and you can increase the scale. And in this case, I'm just going to use the global scale. Okay, and it just kind of puts a messy little surface on there. It's a really nice way to work. All right, and we're going to we're going to drop that right on the hydrant. Okay, and we're also going to make sure to get it on the other objects. Remember, those are separate, like that. Okay, let's do a quick render. And so just with some surfaces on, it's already looking better without even the hairs and the grass on. All right, so it's looking a little bit better, but it still needs more environment. And you can always take this into body paint, like I showed you earlier, and paint some dirt and noise on there. You can add more diffusion noise, like we've done here with the ground. So use all those techniques throughout the course to actually dirty this up and give it a little bit more interest. Don't forget you even have that rust image in the image folder from the disk that you can use. And just place that on there, mix that with the red. So lots of cool ideas. But for now, let's come over here and create a little bit more of an environment. Okay, so up here you can see we've got our background, our environment, our foreground, our sky. We haven't used that yet, so let's put a sky in. And what a sky will allow us to do, obviously, is have a sky. And if you select that, it's pretty much, that's what it is. There's a basic and a coordinate. Okay, do a render, see how it looks. Well, it's kind of white right now. All right, but the sky is really more kind of just a globe all around there. So we need to actually map something in there. So I'm going to come down to Materials, say File, New Material. We'll double click this, and we'll type this sky. You can do a number of things here, of course. You can load an image map of a sky if you had one. But you can also go to Texture and even just use a gradient, which would be really cool. If you look down here under Effects, there's all kinds of different things you can add. Different surfaces as well. There's brick, checkerboard, and a number of others down at the bottom. There's even one called cloud. Okay, and even if we just use something as simple as that, and we drop it on the sky, now we've got a sky in the background. Okay, and it probably works well this way if we can actually see it. And what's cool about that, by putting a sky object in and adding a sky material, no matter where we turn, that sky is in there. And of course, you need to be above the ground to see it. Okay, but that's in there wherever we turn. And that's the advantage of that. Okay, so we'll come back down here. It'd be kind of neat. Pull it out like that. All right, so how can we make this render look better? That's going to be done with global illumination. And global illumination is where all the light in the scene is diffused. Okay, so the green's going to bounce up, the blue from the sky is going to help light it. And we're going to do that up in the render panel. We're going to come down under Effect and choose Global Illumination. Okay, now we're going to leave everything at its default, but basically you've got intensity, a way you can cache it if you're doing an animation. A radiance cache is going to create the quality for you. Right now the default all works pretty well, and you can change the accuracy and the density of all the values. But I think for the most part, you know, for right now, just kind of keep it medium where everything is. Okay, let's do a quick render. And what happens when you put this on, you get a whole different kind of render. And what it does is it's actually calculating all the rays and sampling. And now that bright blue sky is being used, as well as the light we added, to light the scene. And of course it takes longer to render. So the more you add, the longer it's going to take. But the results are that it can actually create a really nice looking scene for you. Really especially good with interiors. Okay. Now in this case I need to make things a little bit brighter, but it helped light the environment a little bit more. So let's do one more value, and we don't actually need this. Let's back up to here. Let's go back to our General tab, and let's bump this up to 300, the primary intensity. And you can see already it's brighter, which is great. And we'd probably end up somewhere around 200%. But I think the 3 might be working. And again, the more you have in your scene, the more the light is going to bounce and diffuse all over the place. You can do a lot of scenes without actually adding a light. But one thing I've always told people with global illumination is don't use it to light your scene. Use it to enhance your scene. Okay, and that's what we're doing here. Okay. And of course, as I've said throughout the course, the principles here are what are important the most, because a quality scene does take a little bit of time to set up. But let's put these back on, make sure we can see everything. And let's go ahead and do one more render. And it's going to take a little bit longer. So let's let that finish and we'll do one more video.